Welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and I'm delighted to welcome our guests for the second time, where we're looking at their take on the game and leadership aspect of the podcast. Who knows what we might find out, because we all look at this differently, and it's always so interesting to see what the guests have in store for me when I turn up, because we never plan this in advance. So I hope you're as excited as me. Let's get into it, and I'll see you on the other side. I'm so pleased to have Darren Sweet with us for a second episode on Game of Leadership. Welcome again, Darren. Great to have you.
Really good to see you again, Paula. You're a glutton for punishment.
Very much. But we could say the same about you, when you come on here for a second time. Now, last time we met you, you were sharing all about your leadership story. And it was just great to hear what sort of led you to where you are now, leading your own business. Just for those of you that haven't met you before, please just share a little bit about your current venture.
Okay, so my current venture is a digital card platform that can be used in training and virtual meetings. So essentially in Zoom calls or Microsoft Teams calls, something that you would pull up as screen share and actually use within the sessions that you're running to make the sessions more engaging, interactive and fun. And it's called ipsodexo.com.
Fantastic. Now, Darren is the founder of ipsodexo.com, and Darren's mission is to make virtual meetings interactive, engaging and fun. And I absolutely love that. That resonates with me so much, having sat in years of training sessions, leadership development that just felt dull and boring. So what makes Ipsodexo so different?
It's different from, I suppose, a few perspectives. It's got a multitude of different kind of games and card decks on there to begin with that the users within your meetings can actually interact with themselves. So because it's screen shared, as long as you give remote mouse access to other users, they can move the cards around themselves. So it creates that kind of really good interactive, I suppose, vibe within meetings, so that people can actually have a go themselves, and creates really good kind of group conversations. And as I've probably said before, some of them are games as well, so that they can have fun playing games. I mean, I've got one in there that's kind of an escape room stroke zombie game.
Fantastic.
For teams to work together to escape from this kind of manor before they get munched up by zombies. So it's, I think what I like about it is there are the range of different card games in there can be a few minutes long up to something that may last 2 hours, depending on which session it is that you want to use and what the purpose of the session is. But it's great for the facilitator, because it's not, if you're facilitating a session or delivering a training session, you're not constantly having to talk and deliver something like you would with multiple PowerPoint slides or whatever. You can just set a card game up and just let people run with it and interact with each other, and their kind of learning comes from the interaction. And I think that's what's really great about it. So,
Oh, fantastic. It sounds amazing, Darren. And I think you've shared previously that we're hoping for this to launch this month. But let's see, you were talking about the beta testing. So let's see how that goes. But fingers crossed it's this month. Is that right?
Yeah, that's my plan. That's my plan. So.
Oh, that's so exciting. All right. Well, you know what? When I decided that this was going to be called Game of Leadership, you know what? The idea just started. It had legs. Let's put it like that. All the ideas started tumbling out. as to, what could we bring to the table. And, you were amongst the founding guests that I thought of to have on the show, because Ipsodexo is all about games in its literal sense, with leadership. So what I thought would be fun today, and as I do with other guests, is to play a game or talk about a game that you've had experience of. What is it that you want to do today, Darren?
Okay, well, what I thought would be fun to do is I've created a little card deck specifically for us to use in this session around leadership, that can create kind of leadership conversations. So it's a simple little deck. It's got 12 cards in it, and each card creates a conversation. And I just thought it'd be great for us to be able to sort of have a good two-way engaging conversation about each one, and think of what facet of leadership the card might kind of make us think about, really. So yeah, I've put that deck together, and it is a deck that I'll probably add to Ipsodexo as one of the offerings, but I'll probably add another kind of 20 or so cards to it when I actually come to place it, on the full system. But I've got it available for us today, so we can have a little look at the cards. And I think, should I just put it up on screen and show you?
That would be great. And obviously, for those that are listening, we're going to talk you through what it is we're actually looking at, so you get an idea of what we're doing, because this podcast is multi-purpose. It's shared audio and visual. And if you want to see the visual side of this, and if you get a moment, please do, because it's great to see on screen as well, the Ipsodexo platform. Please do visit the Game of Leadership YouTube channel and have a look, because it's up on there as well. So that said, Darren, are you ready to go?
Yep, let's rely on our technical know-how working well here. So I'll flip over into the platform.
Super. I'm going to add it into the stream now. There we go.
Is it visible now?
It is. So what we're looking at is essentially a card table. Yes. Obviously, this is digital, but we've got a deck of cards ready to go. So I'm going to hand over to Darren.
Brilliant. Okay. So what we've got here, I'm just going to make sure I can use it all okay in StreamYard. So I've got a little area at the bottom kind of blocking some of my buttons. No, it's allowed me to move it, which is great. Okay, so I've called this one Leadership Sketch Bites, and what I've done is created a little set of cards, and on each card I've put a simple little sketch, and each of the sketches relate to something connected to leadership. So what I thought we would do is randomly select a card, pull it out onto the tabletop, and then we'll have a conversation about what we think that card is about. And if we run out of, or if we cover one off quickly, we'll just move on to another card.
Sure.
And so I'll give them a little shuffle now, and whatever comes up on top is the one we'll talk about. So we'll start with this one, and I'll drag it over onto the tabletop, pop it in the middle. And then, so for the audio listeners, should I describe what we're looking at the moment?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we've got a card on screen, and the illustration on the card is effectively steps. So we've got a little sort of, I suppose there's about 10 steps on there, going up on a diagonal from left to right. So the steps go up, and then there's kind of a little dotted line that follows the track of the steps, but in a much more haphazard kind of fashion. So it's a kind of swirly, slightly messy dotted line following that similar track. So that's what we've got in front of us. So did you want to start with this one, Paula? See what you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Darren. And little ideas are popping up in my head as which is absolutely what these cards are supposed to do, I guess. So, yes, incremental steps in terms of our personal development as leaders is what popped into my head first of all. And we like to think of those incremental steps as following on neatly, one after the other. As we see, if we think about what it is that we want to go for, like a leadership goal, it might be that you want to go for a promotion or it might be that you want to develop a skill in a certain area that you've seen as a gap, that will help improve the current role that you're in. Could be all sorts of things. And we like to think of it being a real sort of one step after the other, all clearly laid out journey. Very often in real life, that is not the case at all. So I love the fact that you have this higgledy-piggledy line, dotted line going all over the place, albeit that it's going up in the same direction as the stairs. It is higgledy-piggledy and all over the place. And honestly, that's real life for you. We can make great plans, but we also have to build our resilience in being able to take the challenges and wear the bumps along the way. COVID-19, again, we spoke about that in our last episode, Darren, is a great example of where we get knocked off track, challenges come in, and the Ukraine war is another one. I've got clients that are really having massive increase in workload, changes in supply chain, lots of knock-on effects that you wouldn't think of, as well as thinking about the poor people that are obviously caught up in it. These are things that we couldn't have predicted as unintended consequences almost. Perhaps the Ukraine war is not a great example because we all saw it coming with what was going on in politics and the news. But I think you kind of get the idea about what I'm saying. Stuff comes in here and there, left field, and we have to change direction and adapt and flex. Yeah. So, there you go. I'll stop talking for a minute, Darren. You go.
Yeah, I was about to say the same, really. That dotted line is about kind of the agility within the kind of journey that we've laid out, expecting to be such a smooth journey. But I think when those things come along to kind of maybe knock us sideways or knock us back a little bit, and so you see some of those loops kind of send us backwards or slightly downwards, that's where a lot of the learning happens and where a lot of the personal growth happens. So yeah, I think sometimes people may plan a journey and they may feel that they've struggled in that journey, but actually that's where they've learned, it's where they've grown, and that journey is a success, even if they perhaps feel that they haven't achieved quite as much as they may have wanted to achieve. So it's quite a powerful little illustration, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's just one card, and there's another 11, of course.
Yeah. I did actually put on, I was about to say, on the flip side of the card, I just put a little clue. So if anyone does get stuck on any of these cards, there would also be a little, this one says like the plan, the journey.
Okay.
Sorry, Paula, you were saying?
No, not at all. I think it is, you touched on something really, really important there, Darren, and it is about the learning in the challenges that we face. And I often talk about growth mindset with clients, because being able to allow yourself to adopt a growth mindset allows you to fail, learn from it, and try again. And this is how you move forwards towards whatever goal you're setting yourself, and getting to where you want to be. And it is where the magic happens. So thank you for that.
No worries. Should we do another one?
Yeah, go for it.
What I'll do is, if I just fan them out a bit, if you see one that you're particularly drawn to, let's pull that one out. So I'll go from the start again, and then you can just say, yeah, we'll have that one.
Well, I'm quite interested in the one with the two trees and the lines in the middle, because I'm not entirely sure I know what I'm going to be thinking about there. So for those that are listening, we've got two sort of growing buds with leaves on each side, and then we've got arrows going each way in the middle. So what does that provoke in me if I think about that for a moment? And I think I might have hit on the word growth there.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping there's something to do with growth in there, and how that perhaps the two growths together are supporting each other. But give me a bit of help here on this one, Darren.
Yeah, I mean, you're thinking along the same lines as me. When I first thought of this one, I was actually thinking originally, even though it's not just tied to this, I was thinking about feedback, and leaders obviously speaking to whomever it may be, whatever tier they're on, whether it's somebody that they're leading or somebody that leads them. I deliberately made the two plants on either end of the illustration the same height, because it's about kind of, we're on the same level, and the arrows in between are feedback going backwards and forwards. So it's about the culture of, leaders need to develop a culture of feedback, which is not just about giving positive and critical feedback, but actually about soliciting feedback for themselves as well. Because the feedback cycle for me is so that everybody can grow, so everyone can identify the areas that they need to grow, and it has to go both ways. So when I was thinking about this one, I was originally thinking about feedback, but as I was drawing it, I started thinking about you, because I knew I was doing it for this session, and then I was thinking about all the different elements of coaching and things like that as well that could potentially be drawn into this.
Yeah, fascinating. So tell us the flip side. What's the little clue on the flip side that you've given for this one?
On the flip side of this one, I've put just two-way growth ultimately. Brilliant. So it just starts to create that conversation without giving too much of the answer away. But if people are kind of stuck on it, it kind of gives that. But for me, it's definitely, whether you're coaching somebody or whether it's a leader that's having a conversation with somebody else, and it doesn't matter where that somebody else may be. It might be a key stakeholder. It's all about having those kind of relationship building two-way conversations and learning from each other. So
absolutely. I love that. And we learn so much from each other, and it's such rich conversation, and thinking about feedback, that's where my head's going now. There is a real art to giving feedback in the right way. And I think, gone are the days of the sandwich where you give a little bit of praise, deliver the bad news, and then give a little bit of praise at the end. It's not good enough anymore. As leaders, we've had to adapt and develop better ways to communicate with people that, that really land and resonate and make sense. And it's meeting people where they're at, not where you think they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with feedback as well, one of the things that, because I used to deliver a workshop around feedback, and it's about the assumption of good intent as well.
Yes.
So whenever somebody is delivering feedback to you and you're actually the recipient of it, regardless of who it is and what the feedback is, if you just always assume that the intent is good from the person that's giving you the feedback, and even if you don't 100% entirely agree with the feedback that you're receiving, I always say that you can find a little golden nugget within that feedback that can help you develop and grow. Even if 90% of it you don't agree with, you may find that little golden nugget in there as well, if you assume good intent and don't go on the defensive. And I will always say as well, if you go on the defensive when somebody gives you feedback, particularly at work, they're unlikely to give you feedback again. It's accepting it, with good intent and graciously.
Yeah, that's really insightful, Darren. And I always talk about it in a similar way. It is given with good intent, and you can't account for the unintended consequences. But of course, it is good to think about any unintended consequences that might arise ahead of time as the deliverer of the feedback, so that you're able to handle those should they come up. But giving feedback from a place of good intent is the best way to do it. And it's always making sure it's constructive and helpful. You're giving it with the intent to help somebody be better, not to knock them sideways, take the wind out the sails, whatever metaphor you want to use for that. It's to help them grow and develop.
Yeah, and whilst we're on the subject of not taking kind of the wind out of people's sails, I would always say to people as well, when you go and ask people for feedback, it's probably never a good idea to go and say, what's wrong with me or what am I doing wrong? I always say to try and phrase the question, what one thing could I, do better to support you, or whatever area it is that you're looking at. If you ask for one thing, because if you get a whole list of things, and then that could be a bit of a kind of denter of your own confidence. Whereas if you ask for what one thing, firstly, it assumes there is one thing. So it kind of, puts the onus on the other person to actually give you some feedback. But you don't get kind of, drummed down with a massive amount of different things. So I think that's quite a good way of asking for feedback as well. Yeah,
it's a really lovely way to do it, Darren. And I think it stops you becoming overwhelmed as the recipient as well. I think, is a key point here, because, it can often be hard to hear, but as the person, the leader that's giving it, making sure you're doing it in the right way, giving appropriate feedback. And one thing I will add is you're doing it at the time it happens. You don't wait 3 weeks and let it really boil, because something's really upset, or, either the team or you, or something's happened, and you just let it fester. Dealing with things in the moment is much, much kinder, and, much more appropriate than letting it go on and on and on, and ignoring it and hoping it will be okay next time. As leaders, we take responsibility for helping support our teams in an appropriate and the best way possible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the other thing is, if you want to give somebody feedback and you do delay it, they've probably forgotten the incident by the time if you think, I'm going to save that up for their one-to-one, which takes place in 6 weeks' time. And then when you mention it, they'll be like, what are you talking about? So, yeah, you kind of need to do it in the moment, or close to the moment, really.
Oh, brilliant. See, again, all that conversation from one card. Yeah. So we've got time for one more, I think, Darren. So let's have a look. Oh, what's the one with the circle? Go back.
Hold on. Which one was it? Oh, you did the two. So that one or that one?
Yeah.
Pull that out then.
So let's have a look at this.
Let's have a look.
I'm really smiling. So first of all, for those that are listening only, we've got a big circle with a much, much tinier circle in there, in the middle of it somewhere. Doesn't matter where.
And there's a little arrow pointing to the smaller circle with words on saying what you see.
Yeah. So what immediately popped into my mind, Darren, was the circle of trust. Funnily enough. And, a good way to think about that is that obviously the tiny circle is inside the big circle of trust. So that said, what you see, I think what this card is really making me think about is that I only have my lens of looking at things and analysing situations and what's going on around me and the way that I respond to my world. But there are so many billions of other lenses, including my husband's, my daughter's, yours, and everybody else's that's in my life, that have a different lens to look on things. Am I on the right lines here?
This is exactly the lines that I was thinking when I was putting this one together, Paula. To put that into some kind of context, when I was actually drawing this one, I was thinking about a leader that may be talking to somebody that they line manage, and it may be that person's not been performing very well, and what sits behind that. So what's impacted somebody's performance, because it could be very easy for a leader to perhaps come down on somebody for not performing very well without looking at all the different potential perspectives that, it could be something happening in their family life. It could be something to do with their health. There are just a whole plethora of things that are invisible to the person that may just see poor performance, for example. And that's kind of where my mind was at when I was doing this one. But yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm kind of, tell me what's on the other side. Always more than meets the eye. You're absolutely right. And this is something I regularly use with my daughter, actually, who incidentally is turning into the most fantastic leader, I have to say. But anyway, she's 15, so she's got lots of time yet. But anyway, there is more than you always see yourself. And, when things happen to me because of the actions of somebody else, I always try, I know it's hard, but I really try to take a step back and say, goodness me, what is going on for them right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose actually it's worth considering it from an organizational perspective as well. Not just the individuals that you may be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. You may see something happen within an organization and jump to a conclusion that this has impacted this, because the sales figures have dropped because of this particular thing, for example, when actually there could be something else sitting behind that, say, for example, within the external environment that hasn't been picked up on yet. So it's always analyzing those different perspectives, regardless of whether it's a person or an organization or what it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea, because yes, the big circle could be the organization overall, and you could be that tiny fish in a massive pond, as the saying goes. That's a really interesting way to look at it, Darren. And it's that part that we play in our business as business entrepreneurs, or the part we play as leaders within a team, within a function, within an overall bigger organization. It just depends on the situation that you're in. So I think we've just proved how versatile this card deck is, in terms of being able to talk about it in so many different contexts. And as I said, I think near the beginning, if you haven't looked at this and you're just listening, please go and have a quick look on the YouTube channel, Game of Leadership, because seeing this visually and understanding what we're looking at in terms of the card decks is going to be super, super helpful. Darren, what can I say? I mean, I'm honoured that you created this deck just so that we could play the game today. I mean, God, what a guy! That's really amazing, and I'm super, super grateful. And I really hope that the listeners get a lot from this and see what's possible, because it is so easy to fall into that traditional ways of doing things. You often hear people say, well, we've always done it that way, so, and it's worked fine. That doesn't always mean it's great. And I'm not talking about disrupting things for the sake of it, but being able to open your eyes and see things a little bit differently is really, really helpful in terms of creating and nurturing a creative environment, if you will, in your leadership, to help you grow and develop and drive yourselves forwards.
Yeah, I think coming back to this specific card deck as well, one of the beauties of it is if a peer group of leaders was using it, they could literally maybe say they had a monthly format of leadership, leaders in a meeting. They could literally just use one card per meeting and have a 5-10 minute chat at the start of the meeting as an icebreaker using one of the cards, and then next meeting they can use another one. So it's something that can be used in very small bites, or you could do a much bigger session around it and create.
That's a really fantastic way to look at it. What a great way to stimulate conversation at the beginning of a leadership meeting, to get everybody energized before you get going. Because again, if you've got 12 leaders in the room, you're all going to look at each card with a different lens. And that doesn't mean there won't be themes and similarities. That's okay, but embrace the differences. See what different people are saying about it. It's exciting.
Yeah, and also if you wanted a specific card deck and it's not on Ipsodexo, it also has a deck builder so people can create their own. I forgot to mention that earlier, but there's unlimited. You can put as many of your own card decks on as you like.
Oh, wow. Well, gosh, what an opportunity. And I know that I've created a card deck with Darren's technical help for Ipsodexo as well. I do a lot of work with purpose with my clients. So my card deck is called What's Your Why? So that's on there as well. So I'm excited for that to get out there and help people to start connecting with their purpose as well.
Me too.
Thank you so much for that, Darren.
So
So
close-
I think what a great look into the game of leadership in its literal sense. I'm absolutely delighted to have had you share some of that and showcase a little bit about Ipsodexo and what's possible with it. So thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome.
And I'm really looking forward to the fact that we get to be together for one last episode next week, where we will be looking at the defining moments that make you who you are today as a leader.
That will be interesting.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Darren. I'm really looking forward to talking to you again, and brilliant. I've really, really enjoyed today. Thanks very much.
Me too. Great to see you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Why don't you now take a moment to reflect on what you've heard and see what resonates for you? You never know, there may be some golden nuggets in there that really make sense to you and you'd like to apply in your leadership. Who knows what's possible? We all bring that different uniqueness to the way that we lead ourselves in all walks of our lives. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and I really look forward to seeing you next time on Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Bye for now.